How do you prevent the weaponization of psychological safety? This is a real question that I get, and so let's talk about it. But first, I'm Dr. Maisha Claiborne. I am the founder of Mind Remapping Company, and I help organizations create environments where their people feel seen, heard, respected, and valued. And I do that through cultivating trust and safety through trauma-informed communication. So why is this an important thing to address? Because if you look around, you can see that there are a lot of movements that were intentionally meant to empower, to advance equity, to create inclusivity, diversity, and belonging. And these movements and initiatives are now being weaponized against the very people that they are meant to protect and empower. And so when I was in a recent talk, the question was posed, given that this is a thing that is possible, how do you prevent something like this happening in this realm of psychological safety? Well, let's talk about a couple of things that I think are very important in preventing. So the first thing is proper education. Now, I specifically say proper education because what I've noticed is that in a lot of organizations where they're talking about psychological safety, there is a high level or a superficial addressing of it, a definition and maybe tips and tools, but not a deeper understanding of why this happens. What is the relationship between trust and safety? What is the relationship between psychological safety and how the brain and the body processes our survival mechanisms and trauma? And so I think it's important to give a deeper understanding about the fact that we are all wired to want to feel safe. And when we start to really educate people and to the level of what's important to them, to really tap into what their values are, then the lens of psychological safety changes. I was in a conference recently and someone asked the question, how do you teach people empathy? And maybe that's a whole entire other video, but what I'll say is the first thought that came to my mind was, for many people, it's not about teaching empathy. It's about reconnecting them to their empathy and connecting them to empathy for people who may not share the same identity as theirs. So I think proper education, deeper education around psychological safety and its various connections to humanity is very important in mitigating on a personal level, on an individual level, its weaponization against another human. The second thing that I think is important in preventing the misuse of the vocabulary is to distinguish safety, or unsafety, I should say, and discomfort. And if you grew up in an environment where distinguishing emotions was not a thing, then it can be difficult to tell the difference. And so beginning to work on expanded emotional intelligence, beginning to work on that emotional fluency can help us to be able to then connect into, well, what is really unsafe versus what is discomfort, and to be able to help people to distinguish that in their bodies so that they're not misusing a word, right? So there may be discomfort, but discomfort is not the same as danger. And I think that distinguishing danger, unsafety, and discomfort are a very important thing from an individual level to teach and to educate on in order to mitigate, again, the weaponization of psychological safety at an individual level. And the third thing is having policies and procedures in place in systems that define what is acceptable and what is unacceptable in terms of behaviors, define policies to protect people and to keep people feeling safe, anti-bullying policies and such. And so when you get leaders on board to create these policies that are designed to create safe environments and that are defined to hold people accountable to creating safe environments, then you have somewhat of an agreement reality there. I think that when you have those policies, you begin to create a culture of trust. And I think that is probably one of the most important things, is to create a culture of trust. Because when you have a culture of trust, then you are less likely, then the individuals inside of that who are trusting each other and who are being trustworthy themselves are less likely to weaponize these things against other humans. So these are some of the ways that I have shared that could prevent or mitigate the weaponization of psychological safety as you're trying to create them inside of the organization. If you're an organization, or if you're a leader in an organization and you notice that there are some challenging dynamics inside of communication, there are some challenges with people feeling safe to speak up, safe to contribute, safe to learn, even feeling included, then I invite you to reach out to me. Let's talk, let's connect, and let's talk about all of the ways that we could potentially collaborate and work together. So I'd love to speak with you. If this is something that is a challenge for your organization, take this insight into your organization and apply it. And until the next time I see you, stay empowered.